My name is Michael Camper. I was the audio lead on BioShock 2. Basically, everything you hear in the game went through me. Basically, I'm in charge of all the audio in the game. I'm in charge of sound effects, music, dialogue, all the systemic audio like the guns and the footsteps and things like that, special scripted sequences, working with our composer, Gary Scheinman, on the score, making sure all that gets implemented properly, working with our audio programmer to make sure we have the tools that we need to implement everything, and hiring a great bunch of guys to put our audio together. Before I came into games, I spent about 10 years in movies and television, and so I have a really deep history in sort of creating a cinematic feel for environments and stuff like that. I really enjoyed when I was working in film doing the backgrounds, you know, sort of creating sort of the background space that the characters are in and having that help tell the story that they were telling. And so I wanted to really make sure when I came to BioShock 2 that I was helping create the backgrounds and how the backgrounds would be part of this story and how it would really tell the tale of the space that you were in.
Can I come out to play again, Mr. B?
So certainly the big sister, her voice was a big part of what sold the character as this sort of beast that was coming after you. And there's certainly a lot of different variations and iterations we went through. Trying different styles of things, processed differently, you know, dogs and whales and seals and things like that to processed in different ways until we were able to find the right mix of what the big sister should sound like at any given time. Well, basically, you approach a level in the game and say, okay, what is this level doing? You know, where is this level? And we wanted this very sort of lonely feel to it, but it also has this sense of the place is falling apart. I mean, this is Rapture 10 years later. It's even more in a shambles. No one's been doing any upkeep to the place, so there's creaks and cracks and stuff falling over. So I really wanted the sense of dread from the environment that it could really, you could be walking on the hallway and all of a sudden it could collapse on you. And then we would take the music from Gary that we had tailored to each level. We sort of, when we were working with Gary, we were tailoring each piece of each level to, you know, sort of have its own style of music. And then so we would take that and sort of lay that over areas that we felt it was appropriate, whether it was mostly like the scripted sequences, certainly the big story moments all had their sort of cues to them, but also reveals of areas. The first time you walk into a big area of Rapture, you may get a new piece of the score coming in to sort of help you settle into that and sort of tell you psychologically, okay, this is what this area is about. And so the whole soundscape is very carefully crafted to produce that for the player. One thing we also wanted to do with the music was really amp up the combat. And we really went into Gary and had him do a whole mess of new, really action-packed sequences, because there's a lot of really big fight sequences in this game, a bunch of big boss battles. You also have the ambushes that you do with your little sister, and we wanted to make sure we had a whole lot of different fight cues that really worked really well with those sequences. And so I think Gary created some really amazing pieces, and they really amp up those sequences very nicely. For example, with the rivet gun, you know, I start out with just dragging in a whole bunch of different sounds and seeing, you know, sort of what worked well together, you know, until I started to find, you know, a weapon that was believable with the visuals that I had. You have to sort of account for all variables. You never know what the player's going to do next. All you can do is the sounds that you do have control over, the systemic weapons and movement sounds and things like that, and the world sounds is sort of just, you know, get those as sounding as cool and crisp as possible. Hopefully whatever the player happens to experience as they're going through the world, you know, they'll make it'll be believable for them. Part of creating a good audio soundscape in film or in games is making it believable to the audience. You want the audience to believe that they're actually in this space. And audio goes an awful long way to making that happen. You can have really awesome visual effects, but if the audio is not there supporting it, it's going to fall flat.